Rome was born from legend and blood. In 753 BC, twin brothers Romulus and Remus were abandoned near the river Tiber. Raised by a wolf, they survived against all odds. But power turned brother against brother. Romulus killed Remus, and named the city Rome. From its first day, violence shaped its destiny. For nearly 250 years, Rome was ruled by kings. Some were wise. Many were cruel. Power belonged to one man alone. Corruption grew. Freedom died. The people had enough. In 509 BC, Rome removed its king. A republic was born. Power was shared through the Senate. No man would rule alone again. Rome believed this system would protect freedom, but cracks were already forming. Rome was divided. The rich ruled politics and land. The poor fought wars and paid taxes. Anger grew on the streets. Rome expanded through conquest and internal conflict. Rome's true power was its army. Highly trained, strictly disciplined, every soldier obeyed without question. This force conquered nations and built an empire. Rome did not become powerful overnight. Step by step, city by city, Rome conquered Italy. Through war, alliances, and brutal discipline. Its enemies were either defeated or absorbed. Every victory made Rome stronger. Every battle taught Rome how to rule. This was not just expansion. This was preparation for empire. Rome faced its greatest rival, Carthage. The Punic Wars lasted over 100 years. Hannibal shocked the world by crossing the Alps with elephants. Rome was humiliated. Rome was nearly destroyed. But Rome never surrendered. In the end, Carthage burned. And Rome became the undisputed power of the Mediterranean. After defeating Carthage, Rome controlled the seas. They called it Mare Nostrum, our sea. Trade flourished. Wealth poured into Rome. But with riches came greed. And with power came corruption. Rome was now unstoppable, but also dangerously proud. Rome's greatness was built on suffering. Slaves came from conquered lands. They worked the farms, the mines, the homes. They had no rights. No freedom. No future. While Rome celebrated victory, millions lived and died in chains. This was the price of empire. Spartacus was a gladiator, a slave forced to fight for Rome's entertainment. But he refused to die quietly. He led the greatest slave rebellion in Roman history. For a moment, Rome trembled. Although Spartacus was defeated, his rebellion exposed Rome's greatest fear, the people it had crushed. Julius Caesar was more than a general. He was a symbol of ambition and power. Loved by the army, feared by the Senate, he climbed the ladder of politics like no one before him. Rome had never seen such charisma, and never before had one man reshaped an entire republic. The world watched as Caesar's destiny unfolded. And the fate of Rome began to change forever. Crossing the Rubicon was more than a river. It was a declaration of war. Caesar knew there was no turning back. Every step brought Rome closer to civil war. Senators trembled, armies prepared, and the republic's fragile balance began to collapse. With this single act, Caesar sealed his destiny, and changed Rome forever. Caesar became dictator for life. The republic's ideals crumbled under his power. Some hailed him as a savior. Others as a tyrant. The Senate whispered, plotted, and feared. Rome had entered a new era. One where a single man could command the fate of millions. The seeds of betrayal were quietly sown. On the Ides of March 44 BC, Caesar was betrayed. Daggers struck, friends turned foes. But the Senate did not save Rome. The Republic, weakened by ambition and envy, teetered on the edge. Caesar's death shocked the world, and unleashed chaos that would consume the empire. Rome turned on itself. Brother fought brother. Legions clashed in streets, and the city trembled with fear. Chaos consumed everything the Republic had built. Amid the blood and smoke, a new order emerged. One man would rise above all, and the age of emperors would begin. Augustus Caesar emerged from the chaos of civil war. He became Rome's first emperor, ending decades of bloodshed. Under his rule, Rome entered a golden age. Peace and prosperity spread across the empire. But even as Rome celebrated, the shadow of power reminded all. Absolute control can build greatness, and also plant the seeds of corruption. For over 200 years, Rome enjoyed peace, known as Pax Romana. Roads connected cities. Trade thrived. Laws brought order. Art and culture flourished. Rome became the heartbeat of the Mediterranean. Yet beneath the prosperity, inequality remained. The empire's wealth was built on conquest and slavery, and the seeds of future unrest were quietly sown. Life in Rome was vibrant, but far from equal. The wealthy lived in luxury, attended lavish feasts, and enjoyed education. The poor worked tirelessly, often dying young. Gladiators trained for death, while slaves bore the weight of the empire. Rome's streets were alive with trade and celebration, but shadowed by fear and injustice. This contrast defined the true face of the empire. Gladiators were not heroes. They were slaves forced to fight for entertainment. The Colosseum roared with bloodlust, as men risked death for applause. Spectators cheered, unaware of the human suffering beneath the spectacle. Every fight reinforced the empire's power, but also revealed its cruelty. In Rome, triumph and tragedy were inseparable. Over time, Rome's glory began to fade. Leaders grew greedy. Senators betrayed ideals. Taxes crushed the poor. While the empire expanded, its soul weakened. Corruption spread silently, and the mighty city that once ruled the Mediterranean was slowly heading toward collapse. Even Rome's greatest legions could not save it from internal decay. Not all emperors were wise. Some, like Nero and Caligula, ruled with madness and cruelty. Their extravagance drained the treasury. Their paranoia turned allies into enemies. Rome's people watched fearfully as rulers lost touch with reality. Even in an empire built on discipline and law, insanity could spread unchecked. The glory of Rome now danced dangerously close to chaos. Money lost its value. Taxes crushed the common people. Trade slowed, markets emptied, and Rome's wealth dwindled. Even the mighty empire could not escape economic decay. Corruption and greed spread in every corner. The people lost faith in their leaders. Rome's empire was powerful, yet fragile, and the cracks in its foundation were growing. Rome was surrounded by enemies. Germanic tribes, Huns, and other barbarian groups threatened the borders. Walls and legions could only hold so much. Rome had expanded for centuries, but defense was stretched thin. Fear gripped the empire. Even the mighty Roman army could not stop the relentless pressure from outside. The empire's vulnerability was now exposed. To manage its vast territory, Rome split into East and West. The Eastern Empire, later called Byzantium, thrived. The Western Empire weakened under pressure, corruption, and invasion. Power was divided, but the cracks only grew. What once was a unified empire now faced division and decline. History was changing course. As Rome struggled, a new faith began to spread, Christianity. It challenged old beliefs and the authority of the emperors. Christians were persecuted, yet their message grew stronger. This faith would eventually reshape the empire's soul. Rome's power was still vast, but its identity was beginning to change. History was moving toward a new era. The Western Roman Empire could no longer withstand the pressure. Barbarian invasions struck repeatedly. Cities burned, armies were overwhelmed, and leaders struggled to maintain control. Rome, once the heart of the Mediterranean, was crumbling. The empire that had lasted centuries was now on the brink of collapse. History was witnessing the end of an era. In 410 AD, Rome was sacked by the Visigoths. For the first time in centuries, the Eternal City was humiliated. Temples and homes were destroyed. The people cried in despair. Rome's invincibility was gone. The empire's glory was fading, and the Western Empire had entered its final chapter. Romulus Augustulus became the last emperor of the Western Roman Empire. He was young, powerless, and symbolic. In 476 AD, he was deposed. The Western Empire ceased to exist. Centuries of conquest, law, and civilization had ended. Rome's legacy survived, but its political power was gone. The world had entered a new age. While the West fell, the Eastern Roman Empire survived. Constantinople became its new heart. It preserved Roman laws, culture, and architecture. The legacy of Rome lived on through Byzantium, reminding the world that while empires may fall, ideas endure. Rome fell, but it never truly vanished. Its roads, laws, art, and architecture shaped the world. Languages, governance, and culture still carry the mark of Rome. The Eternal City may have been conquered, but its spirit, ambition, and vision live on. Rome's story is a reminder. Greatness endures beyond time.